Let me show you how to use my tag window template ruler. The template has two registration marks on the outer edge, one indicating a 1/8 inch line and the other a 1/4 inch. To aid in centering your template, it also has horizontal and vertical lines. I've taken my prepared quilt sandwich and traced out the template. Next, I want to stay stitch all the way around using a very tiny stitch. I'm using a 1.4 millimeter straight stitch to the inside of the traced line. Now that I have the tiny stay stitch in place, it's time to use the template as a ruler and cut the tag out of the quilt sandwich. I'm using a rotating mat for this process, but you don't have to do that. You can use any rotary cutting mat that you have on hand. Just make sure that your cuts are clean and that you also make sure that your tag stays in place. Make adjustments before you make those cuts. Once I have my tag cut out, it's time to take it back to the sewing machine where I'll add a tiny zigzag stitch all the way around to catch the rest of the quilt fabric so that I don't have any edges to worry about when it's time to start doing handwork or embellishments. Now that I've finished the edges off, I'm ready to add a label. Here I've used a vintage linen napkin that I have used archival ink and stamped. I've cut this piece out, and to make sure that I have it centered on the back, I'm going to use the bottom of the tag to slide it up along the edge, place it where I want it, and make sure that the label is centered with that center line of the template. Now I'm going to use my handy dandy glue stick, and I'm going to put a little dab of glue to secure this label in place. I'm going to bring the template back and just make sure that I have it lined up correctly where I want it before that glue sets. If I'm happy with that, then it's time to take it to the sewing machine after it's had a moment for that glue to dry. You can use that template and a weight to press down on that label while it dries. The front and back of this project are ready to put together, but if I had embroidery or wanted to add some beadwork, this is the time that I would do that. With this next step, for this project, I want to add a very stiff, heavyweight interfacing, and I've chosen this Pellin Fusion shape. Unfortunately, because of the thickness of the quilt sandwiches of both sides, I'm going to have to glue this in place instead of using the iron-on method. Now, as I put these together for you, I want you to take a look at the thickness. There is a lot of bulk there that I'm going to have to work through because I'm wanting to do a decorative edge on this project. So, to take care of this bulk that also may affect if you were wanting to do just a satin stitch or a simple blanket stitch edge, is to remove 1/4 inch around 5 of the edges. And I'll get to the 6th edge in just a moment. So, 1/4 inch around 5 edges. So let's go ahead and make those cuts. You're going to do both lengthwise sides and make sure you make these cuts nice and clean. You're going to do the bottom edge And you're going to make cuts on both of the angled top sides of the tag, or the interfacing part of the tag. This project I want a little stiff. You don't have to use any type of interfacing on the inside. You can simply put your two front and back sandwich pieces together and you'll be ready to finish the project. This top portion I want to remove at least 1/2 inch. I could even go a little bit more than 1/2 inch. And let me show you why I removed that portion. If you take a look at the tag, there's a notch in place. That is your center notch for the way you decide you want to put your hanger, whether it's a grommet. If it's a grommet, you may need to make some adjustments on how much you cut. But if you're making an eyelet hole, or in this case for this project, I'm going to use a buttonhole. You want to give yourself enough room so that interfacing, that stiff interfacing, is not interfering with that hole. So I go back to my handy dandy glue stick, apply generously on one side, and then I'm going to place it on the back side of the back. And what's wonderful about the template is, once you've placed this down, you can use the template as a guide because you've removed 1/4 inch all the way around, and you have that 1/4 inch mark, registration mark, going around that template. So you can make sure that your alignment is where you want it. You can use the template, placing it back on top to make sure that it's within that 1/4 inch registration mark, and move that interfacing around to make sure that it's right where it needs to be. Then place that template back. If all is good, take your weight, place it back on top, and this ensures that you've got equal distribution and that interfacing is going to dry with the glue on the back. I'm going to speed this part of the video up, but I'm basically going to generously glue the back side of the front of the vintage tag that we're working on in this project, preparing it to sandwich on top of the back side of the tag, making sure that everything is aligned and making that last final adjustment just to make sure everything is together, and adding that weight for it to dry. Now that this is dried, it's time to take it over to the sewing machine and finish the edge. I normally use a satin stitch, but I'm going to use a decorative edge, hand sewn edge. And so I'm going to do a simple straight stitch, 1/8 inch in. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and do that now. I have the straight stitch edge finished. The sandwich is now stitched together all the way around. I used a 1.6 millimeter that will help me with my hand sewing later. Now I'm going to mark where I'm going to put my buttonhole. Because of the thickness of the acrylic, I need to use a marking tool that's going to allow me to make that mark. You can't do that with a regular pen. I've tried. So I like to use just my little pencil, thin pencil lead here to mark. You can use another marking tool afterwards if you need a little bit darker, but I just kind of lightly and carefully shade that in. So now that I've made my mark, it's centered, it's ready to go, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and add that buttonhole. I'm going to show you how I cut open my buttonhole so that the prepared ribbon that I have can be inserted. It's approximately 14 inches of ribbon that I've used. I've tied a little knot at the bottom, and I have my purple thing that is going to help me insert that ribbon. You'll also need to have a really sharp seam ripper. This one also has at the other end a stiletto, or you could also use this as an awl, but that is a very sharp end and I prefer not to use that for this particular project. I do have an awl that is what I like to use, and then I also have a Fairmore scalpel. This is through Fairmore USA Scissors, and I got it specifically for helping me with satin stitch or certain type of tricky stitches that need to be cut very easily. The next thing I like to do is not use my good cutting mat. I have a cutting mat that is specific for projects like this. I like to use my awl and use it at the end, both ends of the buttonhole, making sure that I'm not pressing into or stabbing into the stitches. Make sure that you're really centered. And to show you, let me poke through here. You can see I actually like to push that all through. That's going to give me some good traction to work with. Here, I can now slip my seam ripper in and carefully push it along until I meet the two other holes. Or you can use the scalpel method, or if you have a blade that you're good with, you can just cut from hole to hole. And having this mat to do that with will prevent you from damaging, even though we have self-healing mats, it'll help you prevent from damaging your good mats. And then I use my purple thing to push through and make sure that it's cut all the way through properly. And then it's time to insert the ribbon. I'm going to be inserting the knotted end of the prepared ribbon into the back side of the tag through to the front using my purple thing. Make sure to be real careful when you do it. There we go. Just pull that through gently. There we go. And now we just slipped the knotted end through the loop, and there you go. You might need to play with that ribbon just a little bit to get it the way you want it, but it should look like the knot of a tie when you're finished. And there we go. I did fray the ends of my knotted ribbon there at the end, but that's real simple. I'll just give that a nice little snip with my scissors, and we're all good. The tag is finished. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial on how to use my tag window template ruler. You can find information about it and where to get it in my online shop below in the information section. I'll be removing this ribbon on this particular one that we worked on today so that I can add a decorative edge. I have some silk thread coming, and I'm pretty excited on being able to use it for the first time. If you want your own tag window template ruler, make sure to go to the description section below this video to find the link to my online store, martysquiltingcreations.com.